Okay, hello everyone. This short tutorial is about basics of Python language. Python is a very powerful language and used commonly in data analytics. So we will cover the basic syntax, such as how do we create an array in Python, how do we loop, how do we use for loop and while loop in our array, and how do we create a class and functions, right? So I've already created a script. I will go line by line and try to uh, see what is happening here. Okay, now I'm using the W3 schools in order to create my script, or in my system I use command line as well as IDLE. There are very there are better graphical user interfaces for Python, for example, Spider and PyCharm, and you can use any of those. So let's now see what happens here. So in the first line, I'm simply using print statement. So print is the keyword to print on the screen. So hello world. Now remember, if you are working locally on your system, you will need to save your script as with extension as .py. Since I'm using an online version, I do not really need to save it anywhere. Okay. Then we are using print new line to print a new line on the screen so that my result looks more better in appearance. Then I'm creating an array, and unlike C++ where you have to give the data type of the array, such as character or string or integer, here we do not give. It is similar to MATLAB. You don't give the data type. So simply fruits is my array and I am assigning 3 elements into it, right? Now in order to access those elements, I can either say print and then the name of my array, or I can use for loop to access each element in a new line. So syntax for for loop is for variable name in array name, and then you print x. Okay, now we always use colons here and we always use tabs. There are no braces, so we use tab to make sure that we are inside the loop. Okay, so indentation is very important in Python, otherwise it will show you error. So again, I'm printing \n here. So that's a new line. Now to declare a variable, I'm here declaring a variable called I and assigning a value 1 to it. So again, no data type given, just I equals to 1, and that's it. I don't really need semicolon. I'll run this file again, right? And then I'm creating a while loop to loop over my I until the condition is met. So I is incremented by 1 and it goes until 6. Now if you see the keyword here str, I'm simply, if I remove str, there will be an error because I is an integer, right, with value 1 and less than 6. So when you put this condition, I has become an integer, and if you don't use str here, you cannot concatenate string and integers. So you need to convert your uh, integer value to string. And so I is an integer, I'm converting it into str so that it can print on the screen and incrementing I, right? So the output is actually in front of us, but let's still run. So again, hello world is printed there. My 3 elements of an array are printed, one without a loop, the second one is with the loop. Then I'm using while loop to print my I. I'm concatenating the integer and string by converting my integer to string using str here. Then print new line. Now how do you create a function in Python? So you use def keyword to create a function. So my function is the name of my function. Again, we need to use tab or indentation to be inside my function. Okay, there are no braces here, and I'm simply printing this is my function. Now this is just the declaration of the function. To call a function, I have to use the name of the function. So simply this is calling the function and it will print this line. Now, how do you create a class in Python? So simply the keyword is class and then user defined name. Okay. Now then columns, I'm inside my class, I'm declaring a variable called x, giving a value 1 to it. Now there's also a function called init function, and init function it runs automatically once the object of the class is created. So again, I'm using def keyword, giving init here. Okay, it is an inbuilt function in Python, so don't mess with the wording here. And self meaning there are no arguments here. Okay, it is self called, and print this is my init function. Then what happens, I'm out of my class. In order to access the body of my class, I have to create an object. The object is p1, and then I'm saying p1 equals to my class, and then I'm saying print p1 dot access dot x, so to access my x here. Now if you see here, I've never called my function the way I'm calling my function here, right? Init functions need not to be called. As soon as you create an object, init will run by itself. And the output is here. You can see that this is my init function, which is coming from as soon as your object is created, right? And then 1 is printed afterwards. So init runs before the printing of your variable. Now in my init function, let's try to pass more arguments, right? So let's say if I pass here name, comma age, okay, and then I'm assigning here, I'm saying name, self dot name equals to name. So we are passing arguments called name and age in our init function, okay. And when I create an object here, then I will need to say and in order to print it, I need to say print p1 dot name, right? That's what p1 dot name and p1 dot age. So going back here, sorry, where were we? Yeah, p1 dot name and then print p1 dot age. And now let's run. Oh yeah, I need a comma here. So what has happened here? I created an init function, so it runs automatically. But instead of just self, I'm passing two arguments here, name and age. Okay. So when I'm creating an object of my class, I'm passing two arguments there, right? And in order to print it, I'm simply accessing those arguments that were assigned to my self.name and self.age. Okay. And the third one is just simply accessing a variable x, which was declared here. So in this tutorial, we simply used how to create a class in Python, how to create an object and access the variables in the class with the use of object, how to create an init function, and also some basic for loop, while loop, and arrays. So we'll continue with more more advanced programming in the later lectures. Thank you.